Today, I begin on a new journey in Destiny with a completely fresh account, and I shall set aside all of my weapons and use only the power of space magic to try and conquer everything that Destiny 2 has to offer, without ever using a weapon. Oh, and I use my fists. A lot. I just punch a lot of stuff. And while I do plan on taking on everything in Destiny 2 eventually, in this video my goal is to just reach Guardian rank 6 without using any weapons. And before I'd even begun playing the game, I had already ran into a problem. I couldn't decide on which class would be the best without any weapons, so instead I did the one thing most likely to lead a Destiny player down the path of failure. I made a decision based on what sounded like the most enjoyable. And while I may quickly come to regret this extremely important decision for several reasons, I was gonna stick with my hunter and ride it out to the end. Now I had finally started the first mission, and while my guardian was being revived for the very first time, I was nearly taken down by the sheer force of nostalgia, and it's just crazy to think that the first time I played this mission was over 8 years ago. Anyways, I was quickly offered my first weapon, and I obviously declined it. Well, never mind. Even though this weapon has been forced into my hands, I refused to use it, and I meleeed my way through the enemy. And it honestly just kind of felt like I was playing the first couple waves of a COD Zombies game. After punching my way through more enemies and having another weapon forced into my hands, I was finally able to get my super. Come on, really? The first super on Hunter is a gun? Since I've completely disabled firing weapons, I can't even use it. So I went back to the only thing that I could, meleeing. And after that, I met up with the greatest Cosmodrome dweller of them all, Sean Han, who ends up asking me for help, but notices that I'm fresh out the grave.
Oh, you're fresh out of the grave, aren't you?
And little does he know that I can't even use weapons either. And honestly, he'd probably get more help from a sweeper butt, but he stuck with me. And I began on some pretty easy missions where I ended up actually witnessing a fellow guardian get straight up disintegrated. And after that tragedy, I moved on to a new mission where I learned about the power of space magic. And I was able to upgrade a couple of my abilities and spam the heck out of them. So this mission was pretty much perfect for this challenge. That being said though, it was still the cause of my first death. Anyways, after kneeling in some light puddles like 1,000 times, I finished off the mission. And after some more small easy missions, I acquired a sparrow and I had to go save Sean Han. Since he went to try and 1v1 the wizard, we saw just literally delete another guardian. And on my way, I ended up joining a clan called John's Hut of Pizza. I mean, with a name like that, I had to accept the invite. Anyways, I ended up in a fight with the boss of this quest so I could save our boy Sean Han, and honestly, it took a long time with my severe lack of abilities. And I ended up just relying on my melee once again, and punching a wizard is not a good time, especially when they keep on poison clouding on you. Anyways, she eventually ran away in terror of me, or just boredom because it took so freaking long. After that, I was finally able to head to the tower, where I talked to a dead person, and then I was informed that the Drifter is unique.
See, the thing about Drifter is, he's unique.
Ding, 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 ding.
And I was able to upgrade my abilities on Solar even more, which is a huge deal since I'll actually be able to use the Blade Barrage super. And then I headed off to do the Disgrace Strike to finish off this new light quest. By the way, a lot of these earlier missions were really easy even without weapons, so I just haven't had a lot to say about them, but things definitely got a lot more interesting as they went along. Anyway, since this strike gave me teammates, we were able to use the power of friendship and teamwork to get to the boss, where we did almost end up wiping, but I was able to grab my teammates' revives, and we took down the wizard that had escaped us twice before. And with that, I had completed the new light quest and ranked up to Guardian rank 2. Which I unlocked a bunch of stuff to do, but most importantly, I could now obtain the other subclasses, which I've really wanted. I mean, the subclass I've been using this whole time is literally called Gunslinger, and very much plays around your weapons, which is not fantastic for what I'm trying to be doing here. But sadly, these quests wanted me to get kills with Void or Arc weapons, and while thankfully I could still make progress without using weapons, it was just way slower. So I went to get some other stuff done while slowly making progress on these quests. And after some basic quest stuff, public events, and some lost sectors, I had saved up some legendary shards, so I decided to give everyone's favorite squid-faced game show host a visit, so I could obtain a useful exotic armor piece.
Cool. Yeah, it is cool.
Oh dear gosh, so not only is the Hunter exotic completely useless since it helps weapons, but also the Warlock and Titan exotics are the absolute best ones I could get for this challenge. And I did actually buy the Lucky Pants, just so I wouldn't be able to get them in the future and face this disappointment again. After that tragedy, I began on the Risk Runner quest, which I kind of breezed through this mission, And then I actually deleted the risk runner because it's not like I'll ever need it again in a no weapons challenge, right? Anyways, I decided to start grinding out some activities to level up my Guardian and make some quest progress. So I jumped into some Gambit. Wait, what?
Burn it down.
Well, after getting completely destroyed and gaining nothing except for disappointment from my teammates, I found something a little more suited for a weaponless new light like me, Mayhem. And it had been a long time since I had indulged in this game mode of pure chaos, and I actually wasn't doing completely awful, so I continued in this land of supers and grenades for a little while. And while having no weapons definitely didn't help, it still was fun just to not really care and spam abilities at my fellow Guardians. Anyways, I got back on track and finished off everything for Guardian Rank 3 except for the first mission of the Lightfall campaign, which was going to be by far the hardest part of this challenge, especially since I really wanted to do it on Legendary mode, and I can't even use mods yet either. So before starting on that, I wanted to get my other subclasses unlocked, so I did one last game of Crucible. I decided to leave the chaos that was Mayhem behind and tried out 6v6 Countdown, which was much more based on actually using your weapons, so it was probably a horrible idea for me. And it was a nightmare. Well, for the other team at least, because I kinda straight up popped off that game and terrorized the enemy team with nothing but my melee and grenade. And I think a lot of people were just a little caught off guard by some random hunter doing nothing except for straight lining them and punching. Anyways, after that match, I had finished off the quest for my subclasses, so I went straight to Core Array and spent all of my Glimmer on abilities for the Arc Strider subclass, just so I could go all in on punching everything. Also, Blink. I really wanted to use Blink for this. But before I start on the first mission of the Lightfall campaign, I gave Xur one last shot, and I spent all of my legendary shards on a random exotic.
If the Nine wanted this, you would not have it.
So here I was on the first contact mission on Legendary with no weapons, no mods, and no exotic armor, thanks to Xur. And I was actually slapping these enemies thanks to Arc Strider. And in my first encounter with a Tormentor, I really realized something truly amazing about this subclass. I could just completely stun him and sit there punching for pretty much forever. And after using the Tormentor as a punching bag for a little while, I made my way through a darkness zone where I got a little bit too cocky with my newfound power. Anyways, I killed everything on my second try, and then I had to punch these power cells to finish off this area. And yeah, it took me a few minutes. Anyways, I moved on to destroy the engine of this ship, and you see, I needed to actually deal damage to the engine to destroy it, and sticking my fist into, that didn't seem like a great idea. So I was left with only my grenade, which was making at least some kind of progress. So I cleared out the second engine room where I used my super to finish off the enemies, and then I realized I could actually just destroy the engines with my super. So with one more to destroy, I had to wait for either of my abilities, so I just ran around avoiding some very intimidating fellas because I had already spent like 15 minutes on this attempt and I didn't feel like doing it again. Which I almost had to, but the enemies kindly showed me to a very nice place to hide. Anyways, I finally finished off the engine with my grenades after a little while. And then I made my way into the final fight on this ship, where I got slapped around, sliced and diced, and squeezed into a juice of gosh dang sadness before finally getting back into a fight with a Tormentor, which I was completely ready for. So turns out turning these guys into a very strange looking punching bag wasn't as simple as dodging and then punching, and even my super failed against their suppressing slam. But after a few more minutes, I finally found out a way I could consistently get him stun locked. All I had to do was use my powered up punch while he was jumping onto something, and with that I was finally able to finish off this darkness zone. And after that, me and our boy Osiris, who's apparently here, hopped into some Cabal drop pods and got sent flying down to the beautiful city of Neomuna, which is where I found some strange green stuff, which our Guardian just starts using with zero caution. And you know, you'd think this part would have actually been perfect for this challenge, since I can just completely spam abilities, but turns out I just kind of suck at Strand Hunter. And after getting squished out of existence by a Cabal dropping in at like Mach 10 and several more attempts, I finally got something going and finished off the mission with a nasty tummy ache.
Your body can't handle this much power.
But at least it meant I could finally rank up to Guardian Rank 3. Now, getting up to Guardian Rank 4 was actually incredibly easy, but also completely impossible. Well, kind of. You see, I had to complete a gunsmith bounty, which sadly needs weapon kills to complete. So I decided to use a sword without any ammo, which makes it a sword hill. And you know, that's pretty much just a bad melee. Totally not a weapon, right? Anyways, with a little bit of bending the rules and a few other easy chores, I had obtained Guardian rank 4, leaving me with only 2 more to go. Now, these last 2 ranks were pretty simple and mostly consisted of me playing Strikes, Gambit, and Crucible, which I plan to dive way deeper into these activities in a future video, so I don't have a ton to say about it right now. Anyways, I also had to waste a bunch of legendary shards to buy back the risk runners to literally just apply the catalyst and then delete it again, so I could get Guardian rank 5. Now, to finally reach Guardian rank 6 and become a veteran, I first had to go literally just look at Saint 14, which I guess counts as a Trials introduction. Then I played around with some mods and upgraded gear, and then I hopped back into Gambit to redeem myself and prove that I wasn't a completely useless weaponless fool. Oh yeah, and I needed to complete one more vendor challenge. Anyways, while I still had some issues without any weapons, at least I was no longer bottom board Billy every game, and actually won 3 out of the 4 games I played. After that, I got an exotic cipher from an achievement I just completely missed earlier, so I went back to Zur, and to my surprise, he redeemed himself and finally gave me an exotic worth using for this challenge. And after that, I had to reach 1750 power, which was the final task I had. So with my shiny new boots and a slightly upgraded subclass, I hopped into some Crucible and absolutely fell in love with the Frosties on Arcstrider. I mean, look at this recharge rate on my dodge. I legit only have 32 mobility and yet this much speed. And while I was running and blinking around, punching titans and winning 1v3 engagements, I was finally feeling like choosing Hunter was a pretty good choice. And honestly, I probably had one of my best games of Supremacy while I was on this weaponless account. And I know these games weren't the most competitive, but hey, it still felt good to play well with all the limitations I had. Anyways, I did the last few activities for this challenge and hit 1750 power, and was finally able to rank up to Guardian rank 6 and become a veteran to finish off this challenge. And I realized something about this journey so far. It was actually a lot of fun to do and pretty refreshing to switch things up so much from how I normally play. Honestly, I'm pretty excited to start on the next part of this, and if you guys enjoyed this video in any way, it would mean a ton to me if you could like and subscribe. Anyways, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you next time.